Welcome into This is Baseball. My name is Brandon Johnson. Happy Thursday. Thank you for tuning in today. Real quick, if you didn't catch my last episode on Tuesday, I did an episode covering some of the worst starts in Major League Baseball history, just kind of looking at how the Braves started their season and where they fall in line with other teams in history and kind of where those teams finished. Today's episode is going to be on the opposite side of that, covering some of the best starts in history. The Dodgers had gotten off to an 8-0 start in 2025. Now, I know the Dodgers have cooled off a little bit. They're 9-4 after starting 8-0, but there's several teams that got off to similar starts as the Dodgers over the years. So I want to take a look and highlight some of those teams that had similar starts and where they ended up at the end of the season. So let's get into this. When I was preparing this episode, there was one team in recent history that stuck out immediately, and that was the 2023 Tampa Bay Rays, who started 13-0, which tied a Major League Baseball record for consecutive wins to start a Major League Baseball season. That is tied with the 1982 Braves and 1987 Brewers, which we will get into them in a second, but Tampa started 13-0, as I said, and they finished 99-63 in that season, which in any other division they would have won easily. But unfortunately for Tampa, the Baltimore Orioles were better, and Baltimore won the division by 2 games. They won 101 games in 2023, forcing the Rays to play in the wild card series. The Rays ended up losing in the wild card series to the eventual World Series champion Texas Rangers. So I guess if you're going to lose a series to a team early, you might as well lose it to the team that goes on and wins the whole thing. But let's hop over to those other two 13-0 teams that I was talking about. So the 1982 Atlanta Braves started 13-0. They won their division. This was back when there were only 2 divisions, so they won the NL West. They went 89-73. This was when Joe Torre was their manager. They ended up getting swept in the National League Championship Series by the Cardinals. This was back when the championship series was only 3 games. It didn't go to 4 games until 1985. And the Cardinals ended up beating the Milwaukee Brewers. Yes, the Brewers were once in the American League. They beat the Brewers in the World Series. So far, the teams that have started off with a historic winning streak have at least made the playoffs. Neither of them have advanced in the playoffs. Like I said, Tampa lost in the wild card series. Atlanta lost in the championship series. There used to only be 2 series in the postseason, the championship series and the World Series. This was back when only the division winners, and there were 2 divisions, only the division winners made the postseason. But let's jump ahead to the third team that started 13-0, the 1987 Milwaukee Brewers. They finished the season 91-71, and you would think, oh, that should be enough to make the playoffs. Unfortunately, they missed the playoffs. They ended up finishing 3rd in their division. They were in the AL East at the time, and they finished behind Detroit. Detroit had 98 wins, and Toronto had 96 wins. Detroit lost the championship series to the Twins, and the Twins beat the Cardinals in 1987 for the World Series. So of the 3 teams that got off to that 13-0 start, 2 of them made the postseason. One of them still had a great season, but just based on the era that they played in, 91 wins wasn't going to be enough for you to make the postseason. You had, like I said, 2 teams ahead of you that won more games, and there weren't 3 divisions like there are now. There weren't wild card teams. So it was either be the best in your division or sit at home in October. And we've even seen great teams in the current era that have great records that either miss the playoffs entirely because they didn't win their division, or they get the wild card and end up losing. I remember it was, I believe in 2015, that the Cardinals, Cubs, and Pirates all had really great seasons. The Cardinals won the National League Central with 100 wins. The Pirates took second at 98 wins, and the Cubs had 97 wins. Pirates and Cubs had to play each other in that, at the time, was the one-game playoff game, and Cubs ended up beating the Pirates. Cubs went all the way to the NLCS. They lost to the Mets that year, but it just goes to show like how important winning your division is, because it's such an advantage. And that scenario actually is why I prefer the expansion and the new wild card series that they have now. You play a series all season long, and then all of a sudden you make the playoffs. You're one of the 2 wild card teams at the time, and you have to play essentially a game 7. I don't think your season should come down to that. While there's been a lot of historic games, and one of my all-time favorite games, when the Royals hosted the 2014 wild card game against the A's and won that in extras, and then went on that big winning streak all the way into the World Series. So there is excitement there. I just think when you play a series all season long, you should continue to play series in the playoffs. So that's one of the positives for me in the current postseason format. Now, got off on a tangent there, but let's get back into some of the best starts in league history. So we've been spending a lot of time in the 80s in this episode, and we're going to continue to do that. And now we're going to look at the 1984 Detroit Tigers. The Tigers started the season 18-2. They won the American League East that year. They won 104-58. They were 15 games ahead of the Toronto Blue Jays. And on the other side, in the American League West, the Royals won that division. They went 84-78. So the American League, outside of the Detroit Tigers, was kind of just down as a whole that season. So Detroit took full advantage of that. They ended up sweeping the Royals in the ALCS in 3 games, and then they beat the San Diego Padres in 5 games. That was the first time the Padres had ever been to the World Series, and that's when the Tigers were led by legendary manager Sparky Anderson. If you remember, manager of the Big Red Machine, Cincinnati Reds during the 70s, won 2 World Series with those Reds teams. And something really cool about the 1984 Detroit Tigers was their closer was Willie Hernandez, and he won not only the Cy Young, but he also won American League MVP in 1984, which is insane. And a reliever winning either of those awards in today's game seems completely impossible. So got me curious when the last time a reliever won Cy Young, and the last time that happened was in 2003 with Eric Gagne with the Los Angeles Dodgers. And then I was also curious about a reliever winning MVP. When's the last time that happened? And that last time that was the case was in 1992 when Dennis Eckersley won MVP with Oakland. Now, there have been starting pitchers recently that have won both the Cy Young and MVP. Justin Verlander and Clayton Kershaw have both accomplished that feat in the last decade. So for a starting pitcher, definitely something that's not unheard of, but a reliever winning even the Cy Young just sounds almost impossible in today's game. Let's move on to my final team of today's episode, and we're going to jump back into some recent history here, and we're going to look at the 2018 Boston Red Sox. So this was really the last time the Boston Red Sox were good. They started their season 17-3 and ended up finishing at 108-54. They won the American League East by 8 games. The Yankees had 100 wins that season. Boston and New York ended up playing each other in the division series. Boston beat them 3-1. Then Boston played Houston. Houston won 103 games that year. They beat them 4-1. And then Boston took on the Dodgers in the World Series and also beat them 4-1. Now, there's a little bit of controversy surrounding this 2018 Boston Red Sox team. They were found to have used video replay to steal signs during that season, similar to how the Houston Astros did their sign stealing scandal. It didn't end up being as polarizing as the Astros scandal was, but Alex Cora, who was and is the manager of the Boston Red Sox, was with the Houston Astros during the 2017 season. So I think he just picked up whatever they did in Houston and brought it over to Boston. Ended up obviously being very successful for them. Alex Cora got suspended for a season when all this came out, and now he's back with the team. Now he's back with Boston. But yeah, Boston won the World Series that year over the Dodgers. So unfortunately for the Los Angeles Dodgers, in back-to-back World Series, they were playing against two teams that cheated. And like I said, the Boston situation wasn't as big of a deal, or it didn't seem like it was as big of a deal as the Houston Astros thing was. I don't know if Boston did the whole trash can thing or not, like the Astros did, but either way, you had two teams cheating in back-to-back seasons, and both of them winning World Series. But Boston had an absolutely stacked team. They had Xander Bogaerts, Rafael Devers, Mookie Betts, who won American League MVP that year. And then your starting rotation consisted of Rick Porcello, David Price, Chris Sale, Nate Eovaldi was in there as well. And out in the bullpen, Craig Kimbrell, Hector Velasquez. I got to give Joe Kelly a shout out as well. Just a really good baseball team in 2018 for the Red Sox. So those are my teams that I wanted to highlight in today's episode that got off to hot starts. So let's see where the Dodgers end up. I know the Padres and Giants are both off to hot starts as well, so we can kind of pay attention to them as well as the season goes on. But thank you for listening today. I will see you next week.